Happy Sunday, socialites. Welcome to the best damn social club in the universe. Thank you. I am your host, Jedi ASU, and appreciate you joining and spending some time with us on this Sunday. Again, it is a thrill always to be able to chat college football on a Sunday. Whatever you have, whether you're doing a late brunch or you're getting an early start on dinner, get your mimosas, your Bloody Marys, your wine, your beer, whatever else it is, go ahead, make sure you pour yourself a drink, sit back, relax, and let's get social. It is Sunday, the 4th of October, 2020, and it has been one hell of a week, and the news continues to flow, and we're going to have a good time with that. But again, we're going to actually be able to jump into this with the great Brad Denny, and we're going to chat about the schedule, and I got a couple other interesting questions for him as well. We just chatted with Devil's Digest. Make sure you go ahead and watch that replay, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and give me your feedback on that. But let's jump into this, Brad. You are there. Your name's right. Your handle is right. Your face is right. How you doing, man?
Hanging in there, just as you said. It's been quite the news cycle, even by the 2020 standards of the speed of this news cycle. These last couple of days have been something else. So
Started Thursday night, I guess.
so just for a Sunday where like I don't have the stress of the Steelers playing, so it's just like one of those. It's finding one of those battery recharge type days, and to spend some time here on the social club is just kind of the cherry on top.
Exactly. Thank you. And I don't mean to stress you out, but how's your fantasy team doing?
I actually have not checked.
Okay, so then we won't talk about that.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I could be doing great, could not be doing too well. I know the Cardinals did not look good, and I have, because a lot of the Steelers are out
Right.
this week, so I had to put in some Cardinals. So I'm guessing as any case, that when you have to rely on some Cardinals, you're going to be let down. So I assume my check, I'm going to be trailing.
Exactly. Well, we will talk about that. So, as I talked with Hode, we're going to jump right on into it because I know we're going to not necessarily go for 3.5 hours, but we'll just do less than an hour. But I wanted to jump into it. Schedule has been out for over 24 hours. It's been marinated. It's tenderized. Any additional or new thoughts after having a chance to look at the schedule and what else you may be seeing that we didn't get to see from that initial reaction?
I think it just, it's setting up well for the Sun Devils in a situation where you have all kinds of weirdness. You have some things that are not going to exactly be as fair as the conference or teams would like. I think ASU lucked itself out into having a pretty good draw,
Right.
as we touched on, and speaking of the Devils show yesterday. Just I think the big thing, the big takeaway for us, was looking that ASU does have a pretty favorable draw, getting USC right off the bat in a situation where the Trojans are, due to the unfortunate circumstances in California, are going to be a little bit behind the curve.
Right.
I mean, granted, they're not, putting in brand new systems like the Sun Devils are, so it's going to be a challenge from the Sun Devil perspective. But just from a ramp up, getting to a season um, condition, ASU is going to have a nice little edge there, and going on the road. And granted, the Coliseum, just the nature of those LA fans, doesn't necessarily provide a tremendous home field advantage. But when
Right.
you're having no fans at all, it's just pretty much like a neutral site situation. And the big thing for me is like if ASU can come out of the gates and get that win on the road, I think that then the chances of maybe running that 6 game table
Hmm.
is something that really becomes clear and really attainable. The rest of the schedule, I think, the back half of having Utah, UCLA at home,
Right.
pretty good, pretty favorable. Those two teams. Um, I mean, granted, you beat ASU last year, but I mean, when you look at what those programs are shaping up, and how ASU should shape up at that time of year, barring any kind of
Right.
weird COVIDness or
Right.
injuries. You like ASU's chances there. You like the chance against the University of Arizona, who might not have any linebackers to play in that game at that point.
Walk on, at least.
Hey, I got some eligibility. You got some eligibility. Maybe
I wouldn't pass the
you
physical.
might get the call.
I wouldn't pass the
At
physical.
Colorado will be interesting. Who knows? Maybe
It's
we
up in
might see
Boulder.
ASU in a
Wow.
snow game.
Yeah, gosh, it's always harkens back to that Oregon State game in 2014. It's always a cold, right? The cold always dooms us. That's why we're called Sun Devils, because if it's not out, then forget it.
Yeah, maybe they can harken back, get a pep talk from one of the 1970 Peach Bowl team when they yeah, they played, I believe, in a driving snowstorm. First
Where
half was
was
fine, I
that
believe, in
at?
that game, and the second half just boom, blizzard.
Where was that at again, geographically? I keep forgetting.
Uh, I think it was in the Carolinas or something,
Okay, so
or
it
no, it
was
was no,
East Coast.
against North Carolina. Yeah, so it was like Georgia or something.
Okay, so it was
Some weird weather.
it wasn't near home, so that's all good. And
Yeah.
so then with that, right? Because I asked this of Hode as well, and so my thought process is this, right? ASU got 7 practices, but this was 7 months ago. Is that still really an edge since they really haven't had to do a lot, during that entire middle time? Or is it really something to look, to embrace because our first opponent, USC, I don't know when they're going to start practicing, right? Do they start the ninth or they already have, right? So what are your thoughts? Is it really, truly an edge?
Herm Edwards, in his last media availability, he said that it was nice to have, but like it's been so long at this point that he doesn't
Right.
even put a whole lot of stock in it.
Okay.
From the Sun Devils perspective, I mean, you do have the advantage that they did actually get to physically go out there,
Mm-hmm.
have those practices, have those live fire situations where you're, going through your new offensive scheme, you're going through your new defensive scheme. So that certainly provides value. It's given them a lot of valuable film
Right.
of that they've been able to review for these months since then, that they can just see themselves doing in the offense, seeing themselves in that defense and working that, rather than just having to
Mm-hmm.
be like what USC is going to have to do to prepare. Is like they're going to have to go back to some Boise State film to get
Yeah.
a feel for that Zach Hill offense, and but they won't know, to see the personnel that they're going to be facing operating within that scheme. And same thing with on the defensive side of things. Maybe they're going to have to pull up some old 2000 Ravens film
Yeah, that's
of trying
exactly
to get
it.
that.
Oh my God, because there's no film on ASU whatsoever. They know the bodies, but they don't know
Yeah.
what's going to come out. And especially with the 3-3-5 being such a different beast from what are they implementing? A 4-3-3? What is it?
Yeah, kind of a traditional kind of 4-3 look where you're gonna have four down linemen, three linebackers, and kind of if anybody who saw Marvin Lewis coaching in the NFL ranks, whether most notably probably with the success wise,
Right.
with the Ravens as their DC, then getting the job with the Bengals. That defense, when it has the right pieces in place, and when you have the minds of Marvin Lewis and Antonio Pierce, you like your chances of this defense becoming something pretty formidable. Now you
Right.
don't know how long that will take once you come out of the gates, and
Exactly.
learning any new system. It's going to take some time, but in all three levels, you have some experienced pieces. Whether you have DJ Davidson and Jermaine Lole, Shannon Foreman up front, and then you got, of course, Darian Butler, Kyle Soley,
Hmm.
and Merlin Robertson at linebacker, and then some very veteran pieces all throughout that secondary,
Right.
especially all four starters in that secondary. Granted, they're not playing in that system, but they also have several years of Pac-12 ball under their belt, so that should help kind of smooth out that learning curve a little
Right.
bit.
Exactly. So now, given all that, right? Given the leg up, because I don't know who else got as many practices as we did. I think maybe Cal did, and someone else. I don't know, but who do you think is going to be the least prepared this season? And I got to hold on real quick. I got to turn my fan on before this computer blows up. What midstream?
All right. Um, yeah, and you're talking about maybe least prepared. I mean, you certainly have to look at some of the.
But that's what I was trying to figure out, right?
Oh,
Given everything, who's the least prepared this fall
I
season?
yeah, I mean, you'd have to look at the California schools. I mean, in terms of that weird cohort rule
Right.
of well, I believe it initially was five, and then
Hmm.
uh, of course, John Mueller had the reporting where he talked to the public health officials where, oh, people can do the walkthroughs in their mind, do the mental reps. So you could
Yeah.
maybe even do some augmented or virtual reality. Like that's not how football works. That's not. I mean, as you mentioned, that's how Navy, through the restrictions
Right.
that they had in preparation, you saw with them not having to being able to block or tackle in practice, they just got the wheels blown off of them against BYU.
Still 3 weeks in a row, still getting. I mean, they like have a flash for like a series, and then all of a sudden they fall to pot.
Yeah, and so not having just football in a normal year, the
Right.
NCAA calendar is so regimented. Everything is so specifically parsed out in terms of what you can do when, that it became so ingrained into. And then so now that you're throwing a massive wrench into everything, and now it's just going to be a situation where, and you're seeing it reflected, on a week in week out basis of just the utter unpredictability
Right.
across the country of college football, where you're seeing a lot of upsets or a lot of just maybe sloppy play or weird play, and there have been some thoughts that maybe the defenses would be ahead of the offense, and even at the NFL level, you see that's definitely not the case so far.
Yeah.
So everything you think about college football this year, just it's going to be on a weird slant and skew. It's going to be weird. It's going to be different.
Right.
Some things that you hold dear and can count on, you're not going to be able to. So just kind of one of those things we got to buckle up and go with it on a week in, week out basis, and just be happy that we have it at this point.
Right.
But going back to the preparation aspect, ASU has been able to have guys on campus for several months now, doing strength and conditioning, doing walkthroughs, and doing the things that the
Hmm.
NCAA does allow. The Pac-12 is going to allow training camps to get underway here at the end of this upcoming week, so everybody will be
Ninth,
on
you
a level
said?
playing field there. But prior, ASU, there's no way to discount or the advantage that ASU and the school, the non-California schools, I think Washington or Oregon schools rather,
Right.
have, and from the aspect of being able to have done those team workouts and in those groups, and granted under strict COVID protocols, but that is going to play an absolute leg up in this upcoming season.
Right. And that's actually, we were talking about this before the call, and it's kind of a fascinating point because you just shared that ASU practices are starting the ninth, so the end of this week. Is that true? How is that for other schools? Right? Is that has I haven't read anything, so have other schools started practices already?
No, it was part of the Pac-12 release,
Okay.
that when they made the announcement that initially they said they'd start on the 6th and 7th, but I guess thankfully they decided not to have a Friday game right out of the
Hmm.
gates, and so in their release they specified if you play on the 6th, you can open camp on the 8th. If you
Mm.
played on the 7th, you could open a camp on the 9th.
Okay.
Now with the conference uniform wide going on the November 7th, so October 9th should be the day where training camp, traditional fall camp should get underway. Now, as a
Right.
reminder, just under normal years, the NCAA does mandate there's a certain number of, first couple practices are just going to be in helmets,
Oh,
and
okay.
you
Yeah.
have,
The
be able to have in shells and just helmets and shoulder
right.
pads for every, in even players that like Jack Jones last year, he joined kind of a little bit after fall camp, so it's
Hmm.
by on a per player basis, each player has to have X number of practices under their belt before they can go into a full pad situation. So it'll be until the week after that ASU gets into it has the ability to go into full pads and really kind of truly ramp up. On starting on the 9th would be the kind of the first day of that traditional fall camp.
Got it. And has ASU committed to any reporting of daily testing results, or are they going to kind of do the obscurity by security by obscurity again? And it's just like, yeah, we're testing, no one's sick, or
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because like just ASU in general has not been reporting like
right,
other schools have. Like your Notre Dame's or your Texas, or something along those lines of
right.
this round of tests, we've tested X amount of staff and
Hmm.
student athletes with this number of positives.
Right.
I mean, you haven't seen any of that from ASU. They've been rather closed in that respect, and even from like just kind of a general campus perspective, it took a
Right.
lot of kind of prodding, at least from a news media perspective,
Right.
and kind of public officials to get ASU to start getting those numbers out there. And then now they've been doing that, having some more transparency from
Right.
campus wide perspective. But in terms of athletic department, there hasn't been any, and I don't know if they're all of a sudden going to start. I've
Mm,
not seen or heard anything along those
they don't
lines.
have to though, right? They don't have to disclose.
Yeah, was it Lincoln Riley with Oklahoma saying that he wasn't going to do that just from a kind of tactical advantage perspectives. I
It's
want to
like
get like,
the whole thing about injuries. We've laughed about that too.
yeah, it's like, yeah, but it's like, torn ACLs aren't contagious, man. So I mean, you gotta kind of go with the times, big picture,
Exactly.
public health. Get out of that damn coach brain that sometimes makes otherwise really intelligent individuals say and do some quite weird, questionable things.
Exactly. Has an ASU coach been infected? I thought I saw a rumor, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but Was an ASU coach infected with COVID early on?
I haven't been able to confirm that. I've heard some things that of
Okay.
course, there's been some positives when the program, over the
Right.
past
I
few
think that's
months.
what I saw as well. Okay.
Some players,
Mm,
but at this point, I haven't heard anything in terms of
fair.
that would lead me to believe that there's anything currently going on or debilitating or anything
Okay.
along that. I know that like they've been really strict in terms of since they have been back on campus in terms of the workout, strength and conditioning, and all
Right.
that stuff. That they've been under strictly regimented groups and things to kind of follow those protocols and with kind of one of those zero tolerance. And it's interesting. With all the other problems that a lot of schools have had, even just kind of lead up, not even just in a season perspective, that ASU from has so far been so good and kind of understanding that the house of cards is pretty delicate
Right.
and it just takes one little misstep or something to kind of bring everything down. But knock on wood, so far so good.
Exactly. Knock on wood. It's interesting too because I guess that the way the program is built, right? A lot of the players understand what's the accountability because I think it's like it's almost there's a handful of schools you won't see get sick, like maybe in Alabama or Penn State or something else like that. But then again, LSU, the national championships, half the team was sick, but they didn't reveal that until recently, right? So I guess, I don't know. I guess it's just they're not. It almost feels like they're not going to tell anyone the results because they don't want the games to get canceled, right? So they're going to play no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you just wonder, hope you hope, and unlike a situation where like with the president right now,
Right.
and that kind of super spreader event where they're talking about when they made the announcement of the SCOTUS nominee
Mm-hmm.
of just not divulging certain information. Like you don't, I mean, by being quiet, you can
Right.
easily put people at risk if you're trying to cover stuff up, whether it's in the hopes of from a political aspect or from a getting a college football game played aspect.
Exactly.
This is a situation where people really need the need for public health being first and foremost, transparency, and getting that quick and rapid dissemination of information. And
Right.
if there is a suspect positive test or suspected positive or anything along those lines, I mean, you have to realize there are things that are way more important than college football at the moment. So you just hope that the people in power and the powers that be are really able to continue to have that as the focus and move forward. And Martin Hanks, when he talked to us
Yes.
last week, and his introduction is kind of the de facto Pac-12 football commissioner.
Okay.
um, he said, they built in this schedule knowing that, it'd be naive to think there's not going to be any kind of,
Right.
cancellations or postponements of games just because of the nature they expect it. I mean that not all teams are going to be able to play all 7 games. So
Right.
we'll see.
I guess in our situation, it's going to be a cancellation. There is no postponement because we don't have time. We don't have time baked in for that. I guess.
Yeah, and so well, maybe you have a situation where you maybe kick it back a day like you saw with Patriots Chiefs. I don't know. I mean,
It still
it,
doesn't make sense to me. Like, how are you not contagious 24 hours later?
or just like with the Saints, late last night, they found the positive on the team
Right.
flight, like in that cylinder
Exactly.
with circulated air.
I don't. I
So it'd be interesting to see if the Saints or Lions, are
right
starting to report anything this upcoming week.
because they played this morning.
They did.
See, that's just again, and I'm not going to turn this into an epidemiology podcast, but I just have to put it out there that I don't understand how the teams are not infectious across the normal. How did they shrink or compact the 7 to 14 contagiousness string that COVID-19 has now? Right? Or how did the president do that? I mean, I don't know. And again, there's always new information. So maybe they know something I don't know, which would not surprise me. But it just still confuses me that, like you said, they're playing anyway. But like, how many games were canceled this last week? Only two, right?
It was much smaller than the
Right,
past few weeks. So yeah, it was just kind of a handful as opposed to the half dozen,
right.
10 that I think the first couple of weeks had. So maybe things are getting a handle on it.
Hopefully,
It'll be difficult because we're going into a time of the year that the flu season, and the experts say that there's that always been that potential of the second wave. You see a lot of states
right.
that are currently having cases go up.
Hmm.
And so I believe that, just nationally, I believe it was over sometime in the last day or two, there's like 55,000 new cases
Wow.
nationally. And that's the highest point the country's had since sometime in, or like early August or something along those lines. So,
Okay.
I mean, this isn't going away. And so, I mean, the whole question of whether there should be football is, a different one. But the fact of the matter is that's already been, like, there
Yeah.
is football. So it's just trying to navigate these choppy waters as safely as you
Exactly.
can, knowing that it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Absolutely. And if we do get that, like you said on the podcast, God willing, we do get some of that. Other than you, them, who's going to have the worst record? Because I fully expect you them to go in 6, and I would be. I'm sure there are many people that would be happy with that
Oh, in the conference.
in the conference.
Oh,
Of the 6 known games, who's going to have the worst record?
yeah, I think it's you got. I think that, as you said, Arizona is in a rough spot just from a talent standpoint. I think Colorado's going to be a little behind the eight ball because while they weren't
Right.
necessarily under the restrictions, um, like in California, of course, they had the most recent things where they kind of Boulder County shut down.
Yeah, they can't even practice in their own county now.
Yeah, and so you got a
Or did they
situation
get an
where,
exception for that?
oh, I don't,
We'll talk anyway.
but that's another thing that was a bumpy ride. And was San Jose State. I mean, kind of talking about on a county level. What do they have? The Humboldt. They had an agreement with Humboldt County to
Yep.
travel out because where the county that instead of, that they're in San Jose, it was like you can't do that right now. And so they're like, well, we're taking off.
We're going to
Take the
travel
shuttle.
5.5 hours north.
Is that how far it was?
It is 5.5 hours north from San Jose, 4 hours, 4.5 from me. So I'm like, I mean, you look up Humboldt State on a map, and you realize how far north it is. So it's crazy that
Well, if that
it's
means we get to see Trey Walker play football for the Spartans, I'm all for it.
it's not about the money though.
Oh, God.
Never about the money.
Oh, that that
that
is that is that. I mean,
one, jeez,
Jesus, that,
I
that that
know.
that's a whole nother 3 hour podcast.
Yeah,
And
we'll do that on a Friday night. But again, who's going to have? So you think I? That's why I think Colorado's going to have probably second worst with one win, them being
I,
Arizona.
I mean, yeah, you look at what all the things they've lost. I mean, they have a coaching change as well. Going the Carl Durrell era is starting
Yes,
up in
exactly.
Boulder.
Well, that's what
Um,
yeah, Equity Bruins like. If Colorado beats UCLA, he said he may never recover.
yeah, yeah, and so that's the thing. Like, the, we think we have these ideas and we base those in experience and
Right.
evaluation and an informed opinion of these teams are going to be good, these teams are going to be middling, these teams are going to be terrible. But in a year like this with all everything, be prepared for I'm prepared for like a Wazoo Colorado title game, like
Right.
because nothing at this
Because you
point,
don't know.
everything that 2020 has thrown at us, I'm not going to be surprised by anything. But whether because you think that Wazoo, the Nick Rolovich era, I think eventually is going to get to an
Yes.
interesting and fun spot. I think this year is going to be a little messy. Oregon State, the usual doormat, and Jonathan Smith done some really good things there. They
Yeah.
look pretty solid at times. Obviously, beating
Agreed.
ASU. I think that's an ascendant program. I mean, granted, they have a lot of things to clear.
They
So
do.
ascendant in that respect might be fourth in the North. I don't know.
And again, that's the whole thing. It's not that they're awful. It's just the North is tough.
Yeah, and I mean it's such a hard place to recruit to, but he's finally got that program in the right direction where getting them in a cross divisional draw is not exactly like a automatic W that like it has
Right.
been for the most part for most South teams. But I think right now you have in terms of like the two teams that are probably going to be vying it out if there was that proverbial number one draft pick at stake for worst record. I think that's Arizona and Colorado.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't see Oregon State being that awful. I think they're probably going to steal a game or two.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I wouldn't be shocked if they were a 500 team this year.
I was actually going to say that because that was one of my questions for you. Who is of in the Pac-12, right? Who is going to be the Oklahoma State or Kansas State of the Pac-12 this year? Because it's like
In terms of just like kind of those spoiler teams,
in a way.
I mean, yeah, Oregon State. I mean, granted, they have what they've been able to do, from an offensive standpoint, and even from a defensive standpoint, they're no
Right.
longer dormant. They're a defense that can come and make some disruptive plays behind the line of scrimmage
Yes.
now, and so the recruiting, I believe, has been on a general uptick a little bit. So
Hmm.
there's some more talent in Corvallis. I mean, they're certainly not, in my opinion, a North contender. But hey, in this crazy year, door's still open. We'll
Right.
see. And then, in terms of another spoiler type program, I mean, maybe UCLA is in year three of
Yeah.
Chip. I mean, they've got some pieces. When you have a quarterback, and DTR, I don't know that he's maybe gotten to the. I would hope that would hope that he's not yet gotten to the level that he's going to max out on,
Right.
because I know that he came in as a guy who was tremendous hype and it's played well in spots, but so far, has not really been kind of those. I don't think you can make an argument that he's an upper tier quarterback, but he's a pretty good quarterback.
Right.
And if maybe this year three of the Chip Kelly experiment starts to pay off, and and they don't have the typical really slow start coming out of the gate, and maybe if they're able to carry some of that momentum over,
I meant
I
to
can
look
see
that
them,
schedule up.
stealing a couple games,
Yeah.
maybe even in Tempe. Who knows?
See, that was the thing. Hode was talking about that too, that they could actually play spoiler in Tempe. But again, it would be very 2020 that, ASU beats USC and then we lose to UCLA. It's like,
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. That's the fifth game of the year, so yeah, they're
yeah,
gonna roll in there 4-0, feeling pretty good, ranked top 15, and all of a sudden they just it'd probably be one of those games where like it's just like two like weird quirky things, like a special teams touchdown or something,
yeah,
and a weird twice deflected in pick six off of Jaden or something like that. It's gonna be that would be like the perfect 2020 script to the way things this year.
absolutely. Like, and it'd be heartbreaking and infuriating, right? Because if UCLA is the one loss, you know, I guess some people like me it'd still chat their ass, right? Because it was supposed to be, if it's at home, right? We shouldn't be losing at home, but
Yeah, I mean, or maybe you have like an an 1986 situation where ASU, is pretty much running the table, looking good, punch their ticket to the conference title game, and then U of A knocks like a 0-5 U of A knocks them off. But
how
yeah, we're still going
how
to
dare
the
you
title game and potentially win the conference. But yeah, you have that loss to the
to
Cats.
them? Yeah, that would have been. It's as long as you win that one, right? That's what everyone's thinking. So then, so do you think Oregon or like USC has? Well, USC. Do you think they have a chance to falter like the Oklahoma or Texas
Oh, I think
teams?
everybody,
Everybody.
everybody's on. There is no. I mean, you look at Oregon. The national, as much of a national darling as the Pac-12 has right now. I mean, they're replacing Justin
Yeah,
Herbert. They're replacing the best
Panay
offensive lineman
Sewell.
in college football. Their whole secondary has been ravaged by opt-outs.
Yeah,
They of course had
Diamador, whatever his name is, right? See,
what's
that's
that?
the thing. Diamador Lenore, I think, is that guy,
Oh, they
right?
and like Javon Holland. I mean,
Jeez.
they've lost a ton of talent, and
Right.
just you wonder like who's going to take over at quarterback, and of course they're Oregon, so they still have studs behind those departing studs,
Okay.
but it's not like not every player is just like a plug and play, so it's going to take some time, and you factor in like just the complications that the Oregon schools have had in terms of not have kind
Right.
of having kind of late start, getting the clearance to get back to full. So I mean, they're still very good, and they should win the North, I would think, but they're far from a lock. As as many maybe outside the conference who maybe just casually pay attention to the Pac-12 might think.
Right. Is it possible? Do you think it's possible for everyone to be? Is everyone to be 3-3 a possible situation, or does someone always have to be purely undefeated?
Mathematically, I don't know.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be just like the most perfect Pac-12 thing?
it would.
Just in the 2020, like the self cannibalization just goes full on. Just make it as blah as a target for the rest of the country as possible. Just like nobody's good, nobody's bad, everybody's just
Everyone's
easily
500.
overlooked.
We all love each other. That's why we let all of us, win or lose at some point in time. I
Yeah,
couldn't. That's. But that, yeah, I think that's fair, right? Because again, you just don't know what's going to happen, and everyone's just trying to figure it out as to, okay, who has an edge. right? Other than the maybe Oregon, just because talent is destiny, right? Because the other team that I can't think of, because again, I don't know how the Washington schools are allowed to practice is UW. I don't know how the Huskies are practicing or what they're doing or how they're getting ready, and they have a new head coach, right? And then he was an OC or DC, I can't remember.
He was their DC. So yeah, they still have the continuity. So it's not like bringing in, somebody totally different. So
Okay,
and that's a school that could it wasn't so long ago that they were the dominant power in the conference and making that playoff run
yep,
and such. So I mean they've still been recruiting really really well for the last few years. So to your talent is destiny point. I mean they're right there. I mean they're probably maybe at this point maybe a notch or half notch behind Oregon. But I mean, right now I
right.
think you have three teams in that North Division, and I know Cal's getting a lot of love, and that we talked about yesterday that there's maybe being that kind of second tier in the division,
Hmm.
maybe like analogous to an ASU, where you know those are two teams that maybe aren't getting the love or respect, or don't maybe have
Right.
the talent as the team in front of them or teams in front of them, but would not shock anybody that pays attention to this conference to see them, rise up and take the division title.
Did they have anyone leave? Did they have any mass exodus like Oregon?
I don't know. I'm not sure in terms of opt outs, but in terms of like, guys departing, just from, going to the draft and,
Right.
I mean, there's no more Evan Weaver.
Hmm.
They had those stud safeties that are now in the NFL. So, I mean, that
Right.
defense is going to take a look. And, the offense is always a question mark with them. Chase Garbers is shown flashes to be, a top tier Pac-12 quarterback, but
Hmm.
whether he's able to kind of sustain that over the course of a full,
Yeah.
season of 6 games, and or just stay healthy. Offense has always been, has been a recent question mark for them. Can they score enough? And now with their defense perhaps not being as stingy
Right.
early on, it still should be pretty good. But I don't know if using like an Ashton Davis and a Evan Weaver and all that stuff that you're going to have that level of play. So maybe you're off put pressure on the offense to score a little bit more.
Right.
We'll see, but it's going to be interesting because how good what coaching staffs are able to get their guys to kind of rise up and persevere through these weird circumstances. And it's one of those, everybody's had to deal with it, and but
Right.
at various levels. But I think it's going
It's
to be really telling of what coaching staffs in this conference are able to kind of get the most out of their talent on the field, but also kind of
right.
get their guys to mentally just kind of navigate knowing with all the stuff going on around them in terms of the complications and challenges that everybody's got to they're gonna have to deal with.
It's going to be a fascinating case study to watch everything go down. Who does what? Who did what well? But also who can, I think, like you said, remain consistent, right, amongst that. And it's always there is no promise of being in the playoff, right? There isn't. So I mean, obviously,
Big
it's a
12's trying to help out as much as they can, though.
try. Yeah. That and I fully expect Oklahoma State and Kansas State to lose at some point in time, right? Watch them peak, and then all of a sudden they just take the dump, right? And then again, everyone goes. I don't know how many games they're playing, but everyone goes 500. I mean
Opens the
that.
door for eventual Big 12 champ Coastal Carolina.
Oh, I would love that. I would love. I would love some random just to come. It's actually probably going to end up being BYU. So we'll see. Because I mean, I don't. I think BYU is playing well, but I don't know if it is because of the who they're playing or is it their actual ability.
I mean, what they got: La Tech, Troy, and Navy so far.
Right.
Navy that wasn't allowed to touch each other in practice. So I don't
I
know.
know
I mean, they got some quality. I mean, they
they
always got
do.
some mean dudes up in Provo, but and they got a good quarterback, and
Yeah.
uh, so I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things where we don't know how good they are because they've had to basically put it together a schedule from kind of the cast offs and scraps
And they're
that.
still booking people, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and so like
They just book someone.
they have I don't know, it was like one or two games from their initial schedule or remaining. Everything else has been cobbled together as best they can, and that's just what you got to do. I mean, look at Houston, who's like their first four scheduled games, and even after
They haven't
kind of
played
scheduling
yet,
things on
have
the
they?
fly. Yeah, it's like they haven't they book a game on Saturday, then on the following Tuesday it gets
They all get sick.
it gets canceled. So like, and so it's gonna be interesting to see like how with
Yeah.
this rapid daily testing and these protocols and the Pac-12 kind of taking I think a smart approach of sit back, better safe than sorry. Let things play out and learning some lessons. Once they get started, how much will that make a difference? Will they get through will teams be able to get through
Right.
6 and 7 games, or will you run into problems in week 2 or 3? I mean,
Right. And that's
it,
always a hope, right? That
it's
you
impossible.
learn more from what everyone else has done. Right. But
Yeah,
again, how many schools are really sharing information around as well, right? Because again, it's like, this is the lesson we learned. This is the one you're not supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do, and everything else, right? I would hope, because I guess the first game is in 5 weeks or 4.5 days, 4.5 weeks. So you would hope there's a lot more that we've learned in that amount of time. But then again, like you said, our understanding may be completely changed from the virus by that time as well. So that's what I'm
yeah,
hoping.
it's gonna be a weird thing. Yeah, because like 1 month ago, what we knew versus what we know now versus what we're gonna know,
Right.
about this time for when season's getting about to kick off. So you just gotta flexibility is the theme of the day, the theme of the week, theme of the year. Just
Exactly.
you gotta be able to roll with it. Got to be able to adjust, and got to be
Right.
able to be able and willing to do things that in a normal course of the year would probably be unthinkable.
Exactly. So now with the schedule, um, non ASU, what do you want to see other than them playing games? What do you want to see happen this year? What would you like to see happen?
From a Pac-12 perspective,
Yeah, from a conference level perspective.
I would just like to see them play good quality of football, and maybe have some, a group of teams, whether it is, an Oregon, a USC like people expect, or
Hmm.
like a Cal or ASU, some team to, really kind of rise up and play to a level that earns national respect. And
Okay.
so that, you know, despite the late start and all the jokes and the punchlines and everything that, has come at the Pac 12's expense,
Right.
to see them, show that, hey, really, really good football is still played out west, and it's
Right.
worthy of your national recognition. And that they have whether or not a team makes the playoff this year. And again, it's kind of putting an asterisk by the season or whatever
Right.
is something that maybe is a little too far. But I mean, it just kind of take everything with kind of a grain of salt. So I don't
Exactly.
think that like a Pac-12 getting into the playoff is a end all be all. It would be great, it'd be
Be
nice,
nice. Exactly.
but just maybe if you get a couple teams in the national conversation,
Right.
just play well. And maybe the schedule makers are going to be a little favorable. We've seen especially with ASU's opener,
Yep.
noon Eastern. There's going to be a lot of eyes on that. It's Fox's spotlight game of that day.
Herm's gonna be
So
on Fox like every day talking about that game.
there are worse things in the world than to have Herm Edwards on national TV and getting some media time. That man's a gem, and the
Yes.
more he can, if ASU's on-field profile allows him to raise, puts him in a position to help further raise the program's profile and also just
Right.
Pac-12 profile, that's kind of a win-win from all around. And with all the stuff the the weird corners that Pac-12 has painted itself in over the years in terms of the revenue, the scheduling,
Right.
the television distribution. Again, that's the thing we talked about yesterday. No Pac-12 networks for this slate of six
Which is
games,
crazy.
so there's no excuses for in terms of, oh, this was such a great game, but it was buried on the Pac-12 network. No, like everything's going to be on at worst what FS1. So
Right.
um,
It's all national
you
in some form or another.
yeah, so you're gonna have an opportunity
Right.
that so that I think that the terms of the profile and the exposure excuses and problems that people like to throw at and have deservedly thrown at the Pac-12
Of
in
course.
recent years, that's out the window. So you're gonna have the
Absolutely.
ability to show what your conference is about. That, okay, hey, some of our traditional powers in USC and Oregon are still really damn good at football, or hey,
Right.
we got some up and coming ascendant programs like Cal, or maybe Wazoo comes out of nowhere again, or ASU.
Right.
But hey, these are up and coming programs that are going to be worth and paying attention to
Hmm.
this year, and hopefully when things get back to a normal slate in 2021.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other thing too, because I think I've been poo-pooing this 9 a.m. start for the longest time. I have been. And so I think I may continue. But just looking at it, given it this one year, having USC on there, do you think it's going to get a big draw this year?
The 9 a.m. kickoffs.
that 9 a.m. kickoff between
I,
ASU and USC.
I think so. I mean, it's going to be it is the first game that of Pac-12 football this year.
Mm-hmm.
All eyes are going to be on it. It'll be interesting to see what the rest of the schedule is in terms of play of kickoff times.
Okay.
If maybe the Pac-12 is like, make sure to give it, a healthy berth, and so it doesn't have like, maybe they don't throw in like an 11 a.m. kickoff or a noon
Okay.
kickoff or something like it. If maybe they'll backload them to like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But even from just a national, excuse me, national perspective,
Right.
that game is going to be on center stage. I mean, Fox and their coverage the last couple of years, it's been all been built around that big noon kickoff,
Right.
big noon
Exactly.
Saturday. So that they put their spotlight game on that. I mean, it's typically with their Big 10 and Big 12 tie-ins. I mean, you see a
Right.
lot of Oklahomas, you see a lot of Texas,
Yes.
or Michigan or Ohio States or something in recent years. Now it's going to be ASU and USC. So the worst possible case scenario is you have like just an ugly, awful, football game that's unappealing.
Everyone's still waking up and groggy.
Yeah, and it'll be yeah. So it'll be interesting, like the body clock thing, because for yeah, because that game's gonna be in LA, so they're gonna have to get up way early, at 4 or 5 a.m. to
Right.
get ready for that that 9 a.m. local kickoff. But
Hopefully they
you
stay
just
near the
hope that they put
stadium and they
together,
don't have to deal with LA traffic.
yeah, you just hope that able to put together a really riveting, fun game that shows that the Pac-12 is worth paying attention to over
Right.
their abbreviated season.
I you know what? We should have brought up the schedule, and I don't know if you have it because I was trying to think that through, right? Because since that's the first one, given the schedule, right? What are some of the other national, like week 2? What's going to be the national game there, right? I should have thought about that.
Yeah, I don't have the schedule handy in front of
Let's
me.
see here. Let me see. To the images. So, announcer. But that was the one thing, because I'm like, okay, so then if we're the first one, which is good, I'm okay with being the first game. Week 2 is them at SC. Could be ASU Cal. Watch us be featured in 2 weeks. That'd be fun.
Hey,
TU Stanford, Oregon Wazoo, Beavers Huskies, and then UCLA Utah. Yeah, I mean,
ASU Cal is probably the best game on that slate.
I think it is. I think 2 weeks in a row that would be the ones to watch, right? Because then if you start going and looking at some of these as well, not Oregon, UCLA, Stanford, Wazoo, maybe SC Utah week 3.
Yeah, that'd be
SC
good.
Utah would be week 3, week 4 Utah ASU.
Week 4 is going to be the North rivalry week,
What
right?
do you
They
mean?
have like because all the North traditional rivalries like Apple Cup and such, I believe those are week 4.
No, week 5. Because Apple Cup is week 5. Yeah, Apple Cup is week 5, which is interesting.
Yeah, because like the South, like the week 6 was like kind of reserved for the South rivalries, and the North rivalries were on like a completely separate week. So it's kind of interesting that they divvied them up rather than just kind of
Yeah, that is interesting because Stanford Cal is on week 4, and then Oregon State is week 4. Then
hmm
Cal Stanford is there. Yeah, so it looks like it's actually week 4 for the North and week 6 for the South. That's very interesting. But I think week 5 is definitely Apple Cup because who wants to see Oregon Frog stomp OSU? And then
when's Oregon Washington?
Oregon Washington. That's the last week. That's week 7. So that's going to be a nice capper. That's a Saturday because Territorial Cup is that Friday, and then Oregon. Yep, Oregon Washington.
December 12th.
Yep, the Owl game. OW. But then UCLA, USC is that same time, and then Colorado, Utah. Yeah, that would be it. So, yeah, the Wazoo writers were they were tweeting about it. It's like fantastic. We get the Huskies and we get the Trojans and then we get Cal. So they're thrilled. That's a brutal run. If there was any worse run, that is probably the most awful run anyone. Because we were talking about with George Reister, like who has the most difficult road, and given okay, who has the strongest teams, North or South, and it's North, right? So okay, it's someone from the North, but then who would it be, right? That would go ahead and have the most difficult go of it. And I was thinking it's either Oregon State because they drew Utah from the South, or it's Wazoo because they drew USC. And I think it's Wazoo.
Yeah, that sounds like, yeah,
But
it's gonna be a tough route.
that's a brutal 3 weeks at the end because I mean it's Oregon State, Oregon for Wazoo it's Oregon State, Oregon, and Stanford, which ain't too bad because you got Oregon State bookended by Oregon State and Stanford. But then that last 3 weeks of UW, SC, and Cal, I don't think anyone has a run like that. So now, okay, so Oregon State, I should have thought Oregon State has the Huskies, Cal, Oregon, and then Utah all in a row.
Mm.
I did see that, but I'm like, damn, that's tough. That's a tough one because yeah, it was a team from the north that had the tough draw, but it seems that it's probably more Wazoo only because they have SC.
Yeah.
But then who has? I don't know who has the easiest path because I don't think it's Oregon. It may actually be SC.
Yeah, because they didn't get a tough. Yeah,
They drew
throughout
Wazoo.
the crossover game
Yeah, they
is,
drew
and they
Wazoo.
get their chief South rival at home.
Yeah, and then they get us out early, so that's going to be interesting. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't feel bad about saying Wazoo has the hardest schedule, but hopefully we all get there in the
Yeah.
first place, right? That's the biggest thing. I asked this: have you heard anything? Press availability? Has anyone mentioned anything about that lately, or they're still figuring everything out?
There's last I heard, they told us they're still trying to figure everything out, and they'll let us know. So we don't know yet if we'll be able to go to practice, or go to not, or if
Right.
So
How does that work out? And I may be losing you, Brad. You may be hiccuping, or else my Zoom call is going to blow up. But if you can still hear me, my question though is, do the other schools let you know? Yeah, I may have lost you. Speak if you can hear me, because I may have lost you. I'm going to shift to an announcement real quick, and then I'll let you rejoin. So, everyone, thank you, Brad. I mean, tell me when you're there, but the Zoom meeting is frozen, so let me know. But Saturday, November 7th, starting at 6 a.m. Pacific, I'll probably be up at 5 a.m. just getting ready. But we are doing a virtual tailgate. We're going to have a virtual tailgate where we're actually going to go ahead and hang out on a Zoom call and have ourselves a good time. We're going to be go ahead and drinking. We're going to be go ahead and hanging out. I see you, Brad. How are you? And then we're going to have a good time. And then yeah, so it's all good. We were doing that one as well. But we're doing Brad is back with us, so let me see if I can get you there. I see you. Can you hear me?
my back.
Yes, you're back. Fantastic.
Yeah, just like you froze, and I heard you, and then I didn't hear you.
That's all good. But like we were saying about press availability, you were saying you hadn't heard anything, but I wanted to build on that. How does that work for away games or other games, right? Like let's say down in for the Territorial Cup, right? It's down there. Do they let you does the school let you know or does ASU communicate that to you guys?
Kind of like for road stuff, it's all handled through ASU. So like ASU will reach out, just kind of basically like, hey, if you're planning on being in person to cover this road game,
Right.
and this will be a couple weeks out,
Right.
because so it's like the athletic departments talk to each other,
Hmm.
get a head count, and then they'll send out the credentials, parking passes,
Oh,
whatever's
cool.
needed, and all that.
Okay.
So with it'll be interesting because when you're talking about ASU's three road games, I mean one is in state,
Hmm.
so but also that like U of A's press box is tiny and kind of cramped.
That's what a Hode was saying that it's kind of like there's no social distancing in there.
Yeah, so I don't know like if what they'll do. Whereas like Arizona State's press box is massive, and
Right.
so it should be no problem. And like I'm the only there's like the area where I've been sitting for the last like 7 years. Like it's kind of like TV row. It's like where they parse out
Okay.
for like stations, and I'm typically the only person from a TV station, any of the stations that
Right.
shows up on a regular basis.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I'm always socially distant, and like the scouts from NFL teams sit behind me and all that such.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool.
but there's a lot of disparity in terms of press box sizes and all that stuff. And
Right.
I was talking to some of the other writers yesterday about the situation. Was like wondering like for USC, like are they going to let us in there? Is there going to be like some
Yeah.
state or local regulations that be like you can't have this in there? It's just like the bare minimum. just to get, to conduct the game. You don't, press can watch
Oh,
on
true.
TV and then you'll Zoom call in the press conference or something. All up to we don't know, and it's still a month out, so
Yeah, that's what could all
things can
change.
change. So, latest I've heard from ASU in terms of access, I mean, they've we're very very fortunate to cover a program that has been so accommodating
Of
and
course.
open to and understands the value of the media and the
Right.
press and getting coverage for your team. Other schools in this conference and in the state maybe don't understand that value as much, and
Right.
you know, we can only have the head coach talk 1 day a week. You can't have players or
Mm,
whatever and such, but we have pretty good, really good access, and I think, certainly it was like that with Todd Graham,
yeah.
even more so when with Herm. He knows the value of
Of
media,
course. Absolutely.
so we're very fortunate there. So, I think they're going to do everything they can to be accommodating
Hmm.
on that front. Certainly be a little bit different. So we'll see exactly how,
Right.
whether it's they have like in-house practice reports they send out, or they designate a pool reporter to go in and just for every practice and disseminates to the outlets, and or if
Right.
it's just everybody can show up to the practice field, just keep your distance and wear a mask.
Exactly.
I don't know,
I
like,
doubt they're
well,
gonna let you guys in, unfortunately. That'd be
yeah,
cool,
I
but
mean,
yeah.
who knows what the situation is. I've kind of operated on the, hey, no in person anything,
Right.
and anything that we ultimately do have that will be kind of feel fortunate in this year, and hopefully
Absolutely.
next year get back to
Right.
normalcy.
With practice starting on Friday, I was kind of hoping that there'd be a press conference tomorrow, but I doubt they've announced anything, so I'm sure it'll probably be the Monday after or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe there might be something this week. There has not been any, still no announcements or anything like that. So,
Right.
maybe typically in a normal year, they'll like the week before, but usually the Saturday before, or maybe the first
Okay.
Saturday of camp has been like the media day where for Speak
Oh,
of the
right.
Devils,
Yeah.
Speak of the Devils last several years, that means that we go to the facility, all the outlets and reporters, and for me, I would set up the podcast stuff, and we'd have the sit down one on ones with
Right.
like 7 players and a few coaches, and it's been great access. But this year, obviously, um, very different. So it's been a challenging from a media perspective just to make sure that
Right.
we continue to put out good stuff, interesting stuff, find the stories that people are interested in or should know, or the things that are going to be important for this upcoming year. So we'll see
It's
how
interesting
things
too.
go.
Yeah, hopefully everyone's just so hungry for anything that whatever, I mean, whatever you put out, people are going to gobble it up in some form or another, right? Because it's like, okay, it's all here. We have it. Now we get to actually talk about something different. So
We finally get to talk about real life, actual Sun Devil football.
that's the exciting thing, and it's still 4 weeks out. So I'm just like, I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that, but I think maybe we should wait. I should probably wait until everyone starts having practices, then people will actually have something else to talk about other than pure speculation. Because that's really
Yeah,
where we're at right now, right? It's all speculation, unfortunately, but at least we
yeah,
get to
just
speculate.
we do, and all the typical preseason previewy type stuff, and
Right.
a little bit later on we'll have practice reports, or hopefully practice reports,
Some
or
sort of practice report.
like that, and then we'll get into previews and the predictions and all that fun stuff. Just we just hope everything can stay
Right.
on target, and finally get there to that kickoff.
It would be cool if they just set cameras up at practice, right? And then just like, all right, see, here's a Zoom call for defense, here's a Zoom call for offense. Then you can bounce between and watch. But then that's always at risk of getting hacked. You don't want it, people to watch that. But practices have always been open, so it's not like they're revealing anything. So
Yeah, I mean they've been open to an extent. I mean, because
okay,
typically, like early fall, like spring and early fall, when they're not game planning for opponents, they've been
mm,
pretty wide open. We can sit and watch the whole thing. But once they actually, get a couple weeks out from the season opener, they're starting to put in, team specific game plans. Then that's where it
okay,
goes to, you can watch the first 30 minutes and they kick you out, and then you can come back for interviews. And which
mm,
basically that amounts to, you can watch like typically like a special teams period, a
right,
stretch, and then usually some like individual positional work or something. Linebacker
lightweight
throw hit
stuff.
sled,
Yeah, exactly. It's
and
all
then
lightweight
like
stuff.
yeah, and then once they actually get into like weekly installs and game plans, and we're gonna 11-on-11s and type of stuff
Right.
like that. Hey, all the media's got to go because they don't want. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But
we
it
don't want
has
to.
a was there one year, was it the first year that practices were open end to end, or did there was a time where they still even kicked you out then?
Yeah, they've always, once they
Okay.
got into season mode, they've been like, hey, let's not do that. But like even under Todd Graham, he let us watch start to finish of spring ball, spring practices, and some of the early
Right.
fall camps. Like typically, like in a normal year, fall camp, like the first
Mhm.
couple weeks of fall camp would be at night. So
Okay. Yep.
I think both Graham and Herman just kind of get the guys acclimated to playing ball and in the heat and such. But
Right.
then like once you got to the point where it's like typically midish, lateish, or like late August or whatever, when school first day of school, and so the classes become a factor.
Right.
That's when they shifted to the morning practices,
Okay.
where and then by that time they're doing like the first 30 minutes, first 20 minutes or something, and first three
Got it.
sessions, and then just they kick you out much, a little more
Yeah, they sit you down in the
controlled.
room.
Yeah, so usually, typically on a normal practice day, whether like Tuesday, maybe it'd be like Herm Edwards would speak, and then Wednesday, Thursday practices, they would have the OC one day, the DC the next day.
Right.
Everybody puts in their request if there's any specific positional coaches or players that you'd want to talk to.
Okay.
Some days could be like, hey, like Tuesday is the offensive player day, and then Wednesday would be the defensive player day.
Okay.
And so you coordinate with the staff and say, hey, I'd like to talk to Mark Robertson and Ashari Crosswell. And so then the team would come back to after the practice from the Kajikawa fields. They come back to the student athlete
Yep.
facility, um, and once the players come back and are heading to the locker room, the anybody that was flag member of the media, one of the ASU staff would be, hey, hey, Ashari, come on, and so then
Oh, so
bring it.
they kind of like there's a handlers where they grab them and they bring them
Yeah,
to
and
you.
so
Okay.
ASU's SI sports information staff is really awesome.
Okay.
Steve Rodriguez, Jeremy Hawks, Mark Brand,
Right.
been doing some really great. They just do great work, and so they make it really easy for us to get the access that we need, and are really accommodating. And so yeah, that little there's like a hallway area from
Yep.
the locker room on one end, to then through a door into the media area where the press conferences are. So you
Hmm.
can free to shuttle back if you want to pop into Herm, then come back later for a player interview, or like on the days like some if Jaden's talking around,
Right.
obviously a big scrum there. But then if you want to talk to like somebody else, and just get around, get all ask all the questions you want. It's and I said we're really fortunate as an ASU
That's cool.
media group to have a school and program that really understands the value, and makes it makes our jobs a lot easier, and in turn we can produce the kind of content and tell the kind of compelling stories that I think people should know. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that go on, and
Always. Yeah.
the experiences of the student athletes that the fans should know and appreciate, more than just because it's what you see on game day is one very important and very interesting thing, but everything else, there's also a lot of things that go into it,
Absolutely.
so that that with that kind of access we're able to shine a light on.
Absolutely. So now, other than Herm and maybe say Antonio Pierce, who's your who's the top of your coaching interview request list right now?
Oh, I mean, it's interesting because like I think I've pretty much done like a sit down with
Everyone.
most everyone and
Okay.
talk to yeah, and
Who's
so
good? So who's your first come this season? Right. As soon as they open it up, say you can have a Zoom call with one on the coaching staff. Other than Antonio Pierce and Herm Edwards, who'd it be?
it'll be interesting. I don't know because
You talked to
um
all of them.
yeah, I mean because like and so like right now, just like it'd be interesting to see the Zach Hill offense and
Okay.
how that's going. And when I sat down with him, kind of in the before times in the spring, so I was able to sit down with him face to face for an hour
Right.
for the sit down series episode, and he's a real engaging guy. I mean, this for the most part, this staff top to bottom is full of really smart, engaging,
That's
um,
cool.
very open individuals, and like so whether it's talking to sit down with Herm or Zach Hill, guys who've been at it for a while, or some of one of my favorites from this past year have been like Prentice Gill
Right.
or Chris Hawkins, who Chris Hawkins is like like 13 years my junior, so like but here he is, youngest position coach in the FBS, and
Right.
I mean, you could tell he knows what he's talking about and doing,
That's cool.
doing some really good things, in terms of developing those DBs, but also, recruiting trail. So it's like there's always a lot of good folks to talk to
Right.
in that building.
And then your first, other than Jaden Daniels, the first person on it offense you want to interview?
Oh, geez. Yeah, it's kind of things like we've talked to so many.
You did the same thing. You've talked to them all.
Yeah, so once things get back in the swing of things, maybe from an offensive perspective, it just it's always good to loop back in with like a Frank Darby. Just knowing
Okay.
that you got a situation where he's got a recent lineage of guys in front of him going
Right.
first round. Is he going to be able to do that, or at least get to a point and raise that draft stock? The questions of whether he
Exactly.
can become more than just that deep threat, and can he become a well-rounded, all-around weapon,
Hmm.
and a true number one receiver?
Yeah.
Because he certainly has the work ethic for it, and
Hmm.
he has some of the talent, the physical talent tools, the speed. Obviously, with his stupid swole mantra. I mean, that guy's jacked. So
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
got the physicality to. So it's going to be one of the guys we'll be focusing on just in terms of a performance this upcoming
Yeah,
season.
I'm sure he'll get a lot of attention. How about on the defense then?
Some of the things on the defensive side, I'm curious to really loop in and some of the guys that might help to improve that pass rush. I mean, whether it's some guys that like an Amiri Johnson
Right.
who came in, 6'6", 220, and I was like 6'6", 265,
That's what I
just
heard.
is looking total body transformation. Is he
That's
going to be able
cool.
to come to edge rusher, or Tyler Johnson, who stepped, after the Sun Bowl, stepped away from, announces like, basically kind of
Right.
retirement from football, then came back. And,
Hmm.
what's the thought process there coming back? And, is he, now that he's transitioned from outside linebacker to kind of being more that defensive end
Hmm.
edge guy, we've seen when he's healthy, he can be a real disruptive pass rushing force. Is he going to be able to come back there and be kind of that missing piece? And
Right.
so, real curious about situations like that, or like a Chase Lucas, who, you know,
Absolutely.
fourth year as a starter, coming in, maybe the most talented defense, at all three levels that we've seen in Tempe for a while. He's
Absolutely.
going to he's kind of that vocal leader right there. And, he's like kind of that local kid. So many good storylines with Chase, seen
Yes.
his development over the last 4 years, and knowing that he's seen his buddy, Nikhil Harry go first round. So, he wants to follow that. And he wants to get to that league, get to that same level. And he knows that in order to get there, he's got to put forth a monster year.
Absolutely.
And then the undercurrent of all from a player perspective is like, and even Herm mentioned it, is like, say you are Frank Darby and you don't have that great of a year, and but you can.
Right.
You're a senior, but you have that everybody's eligibility is basically just
That's
a get out
right.
of jail free card. You can come back again and do it again. Or like if you are a Chase Lucas and you get hurt after the first game,
Hmm.
and hey, you get a
You
chance to
can
come
come
back
back.
and do it all again. So there's just so in a normal year, there's like 10 spinning plates that
Of
everybody's got to
course.
kind of got track. Now there's like 37 that you're just trying to figure out, and so many different elements and things to pay attention to. And
Right.
it's gonna be one weird, wild, messy, fun, exciting year.
Exactly. That's going to be the best part, right? Lots of great storylines, even in a truncated season. But I'm just actually e- especially excited to see who decides to stay, right? Because I know that there's always a pull, but there's always just going to be, I don't know. It just seems like such a wash to, if you can get another year of play and strength and just improving yourself, why wouldn't you take it? But like you said, we're talking about with this whole Merlin Robinson has a family. He has a lot of other commitments. It's like he has to deliver on, and that's what. Hopefully, he
Jack
has.
Jones just has a baby girl now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just they have these other things, these other visions of how, who, and what they're going to take care of, right? And so that may necessarily be the thing, but staying another year, does that really
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean,
hurt
is
you?
it? Yeah. Like so, like Merlin, like say he has another year like last year, where it's like
Yeah.
it's not bad, but it's not where he can get to.
Exactly.
So like, does he come out now, come out after this upcoming season?
Hmm.
Maybe, a third day pick, maybe French second, or does he come back, with a second year in this system, another year of learning from Marvin and Antonio Pierce, especially
Yeah.
comes out there and all of a sudden rockets up the board, and all of a sudden like you're looking at like a top 50 pick.
Which is
I mean,
crazy.
in
I
terms of
would be.
guys
Yeah.
obviously have so many extenuating circumstances outside of the game, so the the signing bonus and just the initial
Yeah.
rookie contract for a fifth round guy versus like a second round guy, nothing to sneeze about if you can make it, if you can see and put in the work for another year.
Yeah.
But there's so many different elements at play here.
Exactly. That's going to be so many storylines that we all get to learn about and get to be a part of. But thank you, my man. Anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Well, I would like to plug the last podcast that you and I did.
That's right.
It was a kind of an emergency Speak of the Devils podcast that it's on the Speak of the Devils feeds wherever you are: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all the places. Yeah, we gave our thoughts on the schedule
That
and all
was a
the fun
blast, by the
stuff.
way. Thank you.
And then yeah, we should be dropping a another Speak of the Devils. Joe Healy and I should be talking about the little camp preview
Wonderful.
episode as well here for as we mentioned, it's coming up in just a matter of days. So getting our thoughts on camp preview. Also having well on that episode, we'll also have an interview with Martin Lucas,
Okay.
ASU's 2021 commit. That 6'2", 250-pounder that coming in as a running back, but can also play
Mm.
some linebacker.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, as anybody who's followed him on Twitter, I mean, this guy is putting on some like weight room like
Really?
shows. Like this could
Wow.
be like one of those Bruce Feldman freak list guys in like 4 years.
We're down
So
for that.
interview with him also on our camp preview episode. That should drop maybe Tuesday morning or perhaps even perhaps Wednesday morning. So it'll be first half of next week. So encourage folks, if you're not already subscribed to Speak of the Devils, do
That'll
it.
be good. Yeah, give Speak of the Devils, and it's always good because we get time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because all the chaos usually happens Thursday, Friday. That's usually when everything goes sideways. Is the second
Yeah,
half of the
yeah.
week,
Just waiting for that.
in
Totally.
some form or another. Well, I appreciate you, man. Stay on the Zoom real quick. I'm going to make a couple announcements and close this one out. But again, I appreciate you and thank you so much for being on.
Go Marlins.
Go Marlins. Thanks again, everyone, for joining and listening in to us on a Sunday. As I mentioned before, we have a virtual tailgate Saturday, 11/17 at 6 a.m. sharp. I am going to actually open it up a little bit early, so make sure you bring your food, bring your mimosas, and everything else you want to. So make sure you send me an email, jediasu@gmail.com, if you want to have an invite for that. And again, thank you, everyone, for that. Many thousand thanks to Brad for everything that we've been able to do this weekend together. And as always, as the deck says, I love you. This is why I'm doing it, and I appreciate all of you for being part of it. Make sure you love yourself and especially love those around you given this time. And no matter what, where you are in some way or another, make sure you stay social. We'll stay again, have another guest on Friday. We will have a full blast 42 Social Club on Friday with an unknown guest who I am going to announce probably later on this week, mostly because I haven't booked them yet, but that's okay. As always, have a great week and we will talk soon. Thanks again, everyone.